Hello and a very warm welcome to our viewers around the world. This is People, Politics and Power. I am Imoni Amarere. The adoption of genetically modified organisms, GMOs, otherwise also referred to as GM seeds or crops, by farmers has been a subject of controversy among environmentalists, scientists, and food activists around the world for several years running. Concerns have been raised over the health and environmental impacts of GMOs and their impact on traditional farming methods. According to the International Service for the Acquisition of Agri-Biotech Applications, about 33 major food crops have been genetically modified worldwide. Of these, 4, that is maize, cowpea or beans, cotton and soybean, have been officially approved for commercial production by the authorities in Nigeria, making Nigeria one of the 6 leading countries in biotech crop adoption in Africa. In 2015, Nigeria officially signed the Biosafety Bill into law, which made her eligible to join the League of Nations already using genetic engineering to boost their food production. This led to the establishment of the National Biosafety Management Agency to regulate and approve genetically modified organisms, while the National Biotechnology Development Agency was created to promote the technology. Some experts argue that GM beans, a popular food in Nigeria, source of protein, contains a gene which is potentially toxic for human liver cells and autoimmune systems of laboratory animals. As a result, many developing countries have responded to the concerns by either banning GMOs outrightly or partially, while trying to find a balance between the concerns and the need for food security. Some others have, however, embraced the technology on the basis that GMOs or GMCs will help to produce enough food for the teeming global population. The debate around GM foods is a highly polarized one in Nigeria, as it is elsewhere around the world. Some experts have canvassed a 10-year moratorium on the release of GM crops until Nigeria is able to label its food in the open market. They say GM crops are not only unsafe, but unsustainable. The Nigerian Senate has thrown its weight behind the strict regulation of GM crops while amending the National Biosafety Management Agency Act by including evolving aspects of biotechnology such as gene drives, gene editing, and synthetic biology. The big question is, how safe are GMOs? What role should GMOs play in addressing a range of agricultural, nutrition, and biodiversity challenges in a country like Nigeria? What are the alternatives and how sustainable are they? This is our focus on the program today, and I'm joined by a renowned environmentalist and founder of Head of Mother Earth Foundation, HOMEF, Nimo Basi. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Also joining us is Dr. Kashima Ifeanyi, who is a molecular biologist. Thank you so much,
It's a
Dr.
pleasure
Ifeanyi,
for
joining us.
Thank you, viewers.
Right, we'll be back in a moment to continue our discussion. Stay with us. Cool. Thank you so much. Let's begin on an exploratory note. Dr. Kashima Ifeanyi, what are GMOs? Genetically modified organisms. The name sounds very big, but we need to break it down for the understanding of people who are watching.
GMOs or living modified organisms, simply put, is when you have a living cell altered at the genetic level or modified, what happens is that you have in mind a desired trait. And so you look for a technique, molecular-based technique, that will allow you alter the DNA of the living organism so it can start reflecting that trait of interest. Therefore, once the DNA of any living organism, animal, plants, and let me be extreme, man or humans, is altered in any way, that is genetic modification. And so that will be referred to as genetically modified organism or living modified organism, because it's alive fully. It's just that you have used a molecular-based technique to alter the gene so it can give you the trait you want. For instance, if you have corn, which is one of the very common genetic products across the globe today, and your problem with growing the corn, for instance, is just one, is that, oh, I have problem controlling weed. You can therefore alter the gene of that particular corn so that when you plant it and you expose it to herbicides, whereas the weed around it will all die, your corn will survive. That is a herbicide-tolerant corn, for example. You can go ahead to do that to check pests, insects. You can therefore also use a molecular-based technique to modify a given plant. For example, a common one already done in Nigeria here, like you mentioned in your intro, cotton. And so, if because we have a pest attack the cotton, we incorporate a gene that is not part of the cotton. That's why it's considered as a transgenic modification. You are taken from a different species altogether to introduce into the plant, so that when that particular insect comes around, eats the plant, it will die. You no longer would need to spray pesticides. So these are examples. You can also do a genetic modification to reflect taste. You can also use that to do adjuvanting of nutrients. All that are technology that have become common and fully deployed, particularly in crop production. But of course, it's been close to 30 years around the globe, particularly in the US. But it's making a very speedy inroad into our country, albeit we are ill-equipped to contend and manage with it.
My next question is to ask, how is this alteration or this modification done? Is it in the lab or is it on ground in the farms?
You do it in the laboratory and you go and try it out in confined fields. So the first thing is to produce the progenitor of the plant. And then you attempt to introduce the trait. For example, the BT beans, which is the latest breed we have in Nigeria in that regard. What was done is that we had a pest attack our traditional bean seed. And rather than find solution that is more sustainable, our government favored the use of this high phylating technology, which we lack in-country capacity for, to address such challenge. And so a beans variety or seed were now produced, which incorporated the gene for Bacillus thuringiensis toxin, so that when the pest that eats beans, which is blamed for low yield of beans in Nigeria, Muraca viratata, it will now kill the pest. But the point is that modification is not only limited to the killing of the pest, because it remains in situ with that crop for as long as it's been modified. And it has very spiral effects, which is why there are concerns across the globe about such modification. Because there are concerns for the environment, there are concerns for biodiversity, there are concerns for the human health as you do this modification. Because your intent is to, of course, fortify, in parentheses, the plant so it can withstand the attack from the pest. But there are other unintended outcomes associated with that singular adventure of modifying that plant.
So, Mr. Bassi, how we talked about the number of crops that have been modified across the world today, and it appears that there's a very limited number that has undergone that process that are available in Nigeria today. Is it a widely practiced system in Nigeria today? How many crops, for instance, are we talking about here?
Well, there are a number of GMOs that have been approved to be brought into Nigeria, and some for planting, which you highlighted in the intro. But the thing is that those who are promoting the GMOs are targeting the staple, the major staple of any region in the world. In Nigeria, they're targeting our cassava, they're targeting our beans, targeting the corn, and targeting cotton. Sometimes people say, well, you know, GMO cotton, that's not a problem, nobody's going to eat it. But people do they have bean cakes made from cotton seeds. And there's also cotton oil, cotton seed oil, which eventually ends up in the food chain. So all these GMOs are aimed at what the people depend on, to convert them to single variety, more or less. Because once you introduce, if you had 100 varieties of corn, for example, once you introduce a particular GMO trait and it goes across to the other varieties within that species, then you've more or less made a uniform production, which now exposes that variety to great potential of being affected by a disease. But I think one of the, we should be happy that everything has not been genetically modified as at this time in Nigeria. But we're really concerned by the speed with which every application that comes to this country is approved. And then we have many products that are manufactured and imported from elsewhere that are not necessarily regulated, that are just there on the market shelves. And Nigerians who don't read the list of things and ingredients are buying biscuits, buying cakes, buying vanilla from different kinds of things for use in making ice cream, or vegetable oils that are with genetically modified ingredients without reading the labels that people are utilizing, they're already eating, that is already on our dining table. But the particular concern to some of us at this moment is the genetically engineered beans that is in the market. And journalists have published reports that when they went to ask the farmers did not know what they were planting, that they were GMOs. And in fact, those who are promoting, from NAPDA, for example, they told the journalists, from what we read, that they did not tell the farmers that these are GMOs because the farmers would not understand. And so they just told them that these are improved varieties, which farmers, of course, are happy to embrace. And so we find a situation where Nigerians are ambushed to eat what they don't know. They don't know where the seeds came from, they don't know how they were produced, and they suddenly have to believe that they're improved seeds and just cultivate them. And we're getting reports that the GMO beans, after being harvested, some of them say it takes a long time to cook, which may not be a problem. Beans normally take a long time to cook anyway. And some say they the skin doesn't come off when they want to use to make more and more, for example, don't come off easily. And some people in the Southwest said that the ones they planted, harvested, and cooked turned black instead of being the color that they used to see more and more. And so we are very concerned that the beans was genetically engineered to withstand an insect, but it's now having other traits that were not targeted. And so what else don't we know about that kind of crop and those kind of crops? And why should anybody give anybody a seed to plant without telling them what they're planting? I mean, I think this is a kind of fraudulent. Basically, it's fraudulent to give me a seed and tell me it's an improved seed when you know that the seed that was produced in the laboratory has not been sufficiently tested. In fact, some other researchers have published that the risk assessment was insufficient for that variety to be approved because it's going to affect our biodiversity, it's going to affect our soils because it's going to kill non-target organisms, and it's going to generally may even lead to displacement of farmers if it promotes monoculture. Big-time farmers may now need a vast area of land of monocultural production of that beans, and that would mean displacing local farmers and introducing some kind of crisis that we may not be able to contend with. We already have a lot of clashes with farmers being pushed off their land. Now this could also happen. And so we have few varieties already, about 13 or so approved in Nigeria, but we don't know how many are on the pipeline.
So in other words, let me understand it better, is that there could also be the economic impact of the introduction of the GMOs. Because apart from the crops, the seedlings that are introduced to farmers, we may inadvertently, or we are inadvertently consuming a lot of GMO products that are imported into the country as finished products. Absolutely.
The GMOs have, we've conducted a survey on the market shelf in number of about 10 or more cities in Nigeria, and we found GMO products everywhere. And some of the seeds that are being imported for animal feed, they ought first of all to be approved by NAFDAC before the regulatory agency would endorse them. But there was one case some years back when seeds were illegally imported. They were ordered to be returned to Argentina where they came from, maize seeds. But before they were sent back, they applied for approval after they were told to send back to Argentina. And within a few weeks, they were given approval, not just for that, but to bring it for another 3 years or so. And so we have a lot of, so it have economic implication for Nigeria, and it's going to make our farmers dependent on those who produce the seeds. Because you buy the seed this year and plant it, it may give you a good harvest, not necessarily better than natural varieties. But if you keep those seeds that you harvest and plant again, you're going to have a very poor harvest. And each subsequent year that you use the preserved seeds, the production keeps going down. So you must buy brand new seeds every year. Otherwise, you're going to run out of business. And so farmers are going to be impacted negatively in their local economy. Using our local knowledge is going to be diminished because all the history, all that our farmers have done, our forefathers and ancestors have done over so many years will be lost gradually or even maybe suddenly because of the introduction of GMOs.
Dr. Ifeanyi, let's look at the health concerns that have been expressed. Apart from the fact that these crops, these seedlings, for instance, have unintended impact on other crops or the environment generally. The argument is that it has health implications on those who consume these products, these crops in the final analysis. Let's look at that. How possible is that, and how does this work?
Okay, thank you. I will stay on the BT beans. Beans, naturally, is considered the meatball of the poor because it's very high in protein. And because it's high in protein, it's been fully described that some proteins in beans, naturally, without modification, have allergenic potentials. That means could cause immune reaction, can cause allergic reaction. And it's been established that some had caused this, and the protein were characterized and identified as beans that had its origin from the West African coast. Of course, the African continent is home to all type of beans. And so anywhere you see beans outside of the African continent, the roots can be traced. One other thing is that, talking about what it does, therefore, the modification process for the incorporation of the Bt toxin gene affects a whole lot in the beans. It changes a whole lot of the beans chemistry. Now, what happens is that naturally, beans produces protease inhibitor. And it's been established that when you modify cowpea beans, that the protease inhibitor acts in synergy with the toxin, which is supposed to kill Muraka pest. And so it makes it to attain concentrations that had been established to be allergenic to humans and to those who consume them. Why are we particular about this latest approval? The latest approval had no data on food and feed safety assessment. That is, the beans produced and distributed after the various confined feed trial processes. There was no time that it was subjected to safety tests for food and feed production. Therefore, if you do not have data as per what would happen, because I've said at molecular level, at scientific level, that the PI interacts with the toxin which is supposed to kill the plant, and when that interaction happens, it increases the concentration of the toxin. And that will leave a whole lot that ends up in the table. Having said that, we eat beans either green in Nigeria or dry. This particular study presented data that evaluated and even found contradictions in values of the Bt toxin on the green aspect of the leaves, the green pod, and the plant, the flower. These were all when the plant was green. No evaluation as per when it was dry. Now, the worry is that the protein, the active protein, cryprotein 1AB, which is the Bt toxin gene, has been established to escape cooking, to escape the metabolic processes in the GIT, to be expressed in blood, even cord blood. That is blood of taken from at birth. So the worry for us is that he got an approval that did not give us information, no results about safety for use as food and feed. Rather, he used the result of an event elsewhere about Bt corn to justify safety for human consumption. And we're saying, therefore, that some clandestine processes had gone into the risk assessment. And we're worried. Besides, the molecular risk assessment has also shown from the data submitted for this particular approval that the inserted gene is relatively unstable. So the meaning is this. The use of Bt is predicated on the fact that it's a natural occurring toxin in the soil. That is correct. But when Bt is treated in isolation, its impact in human health is distinct when it's occurring in a synergistic manner with stuff like protease inhibitor, as is the case in the beans. Even the person who said that, oh, that the BT targets specifically Muraka in 1990. He also did say that this targeting, this specificity in target, is not when it's occurring synergistically with other cofactors like protease inhibitor, which gives it, accentuates its synergistic effect in terms of toxicity. Now, having said that, this is what it's able to do to humans. So we're saying that releasing a crop without subjecting it to thorough scrutiny over time, because there is not any long-term chronic assessment of its human impact upon consumption. No such data.
What quantity of these products, for instance, can be consumed by humans that will make it really dangerous to health? Say, for instance, beans,
yes,
or maize.
Thank you very much. Of course, we've always had our beans, we've always had our maize, no issues. We're talking about the toxin, which, yes, of course, is produced by a bacteria in the soil, which we have leveraged now, because any plant, that particular plant, pest that eats that toxin will die. So we have taken this toxin that is able to kill insects outside, and we've incorporated it into the plant. So as the plant is growing, in fact, as seed, it is incorporated. As it germinates, more of it is made. Different stages of the plant, more of it is disseminated. Even when you harvest your beans and go and leave the stalk in the environment, the BT remains with it. So if animals come to eat them, they are incorporated into the animal system. If they remain in the soil, mark this, because PI had potentiated its toxicity effect, it affects the microbial community. Now in Nigeria, there are several biogeographic areas for beans cultivation. That is why we have potiskum beans. If you take potiskum beans and you attempt to grow it in Edo State, it will not grow. If you take Kotangora beans and you attempt to grow it in River State, it will not grow. But we do know that in River State, in South and Southeast Nigeria, there's a kind of beans that grows there, which you can eat during the rainy season and process when they dry up as seed and eat as other beans. Now, what we're saying, or the worry we have, scientifically proven with empirical data, is that as you introduce these BT beans, for instance, the International Institute for Tropical Agriculture, ITA, have done a collection of about 15,000 beans varieties and about 2,000 wild relatives of beans. We're saying that this monotype seed you are introducing has the capacity to disseminate itself in the field. And when it disseminates itself, we call it gene flow. And it will therefore corrupt, contaminate these other ones that are used in our traditional farming system. The concern is enormous. Now, people say it is Muraka that led to the loss of beans yield in Nigeria. That nothing can be further from the truth than that. Can anybody still grow potiskum beans today with what Boko Haram is doing in Yobe State? Can anybody still grow Kotangora beans with what bandits/terrorists have done in Niger State? There's also a beans from Sokoto. Can anybody still go to farm to grow them? So when we have a challenge, why is it that we do not do a root cause analysis, determine the root cause and address it? A similar thing was done to the cotton. Somebody just shared with me and said, see, before now we had a commodity board. A government came at a time and disbanded the commodity board. And so that hugely impacted negatively on our capacity to produce cotton, both for local use and export. A government comes in power, gets support from African Development Bank, wants to revamp the cotton industry in Nigeria. A wonderful idea, a brilliant idea. But I do not think that what destroyed the cotton business in Nigeria is because we had pests attacking it. What destroyed it was the disbandment of the commodity board that added value and processing to cotton. We are not speaking to that. We now bring technology that solves one solution fits all. We went, embraced a BT cotton, and we have disseminated that. Can anybody tell us how that has turned the fortune of this country in cotton production? This is a country that 20 years ago was the leading exporter of beans to Europe. Our beans can't go anywhere beyond the borders of Nigeria. But if you warehouse it through Ghana, it will pass. The same thing that is rejected coming from Nigeria. Because we have so embraced the use of chemicals. We do not do industrial agriculture in Nigeria till date. We still do subsistence farming, small-scale holder farmers. So why is it that we're espousing to them the indiscriminate use of chemicals? Why is it that we have jettisoned all other forms of sustainable methods for weed control, for pest control, for this quick win solution with devastating consequences? 25, 30 years ago, if you hear about cancer diseases in Nigeria, you would think is mystery. Today, cancer is as commonplace as malaria. Cancer of all types. Sparing no age. We have a problem here. The problem is largely that of regulation. No, there has not been any application for approval for a GM product that failed in Nigeria. Even when it's rejected in some other parts of the world, it comes here, it gets a standing ovation for approval.
Mr. Bassi, let me stick with the basics again, which is to ask whether these altered crops, these altered seedlings, when they are modified, whether or not the taste of the product changes. The form also changes.
Interesting question. I think we can only, they say the taste of the pudding is in the eating. We've already heard from farmers who have cultivated the GMO beans and have eaten it. They've said that some others say it's sweeter than the normal variety, which is a problem because, as I said earlier, the beans was not engineered to taste sweeter. And then the color, when they cook, they use it to make more. The color is turning black instead of the normal color. That is a problem. And so there's certainly something wrong with the approval and application and approval process. And as we also heard, Africa is the center of origin. West Africa is the center of origin of beans. So Nigeria is a place where beans, the natural beans variety, ought to be protected with the utmost care. But here is the place, the first approval in the whole world is in Nigeria. And some people are applauding that instead of weeping over it. Because we are openly inviting pollution and contamination of the variety that ought to be here, that we should be protecting and preserving. And something we should be jealous over, the varieties we have in the various places that you mentioned. And now, with the big land border we have with other countries, Benin Republic, Niger Republic, and Chad and the rest, whatever is cultivated in Nigeria, approved here and cultivated, is going to go across the border. And it's going to go into the African countries where there was never any application. So those who are bringing this technology know where to get. It's like putting a foot in the door. So and contaminating the species in all over the continent by just getting it into Nigeria with our porous borders. So the change in taste, yes, we already hear about it. We heard about change of taste of corn in East Africa, in Malawi, for example. Yeah, and that was not GMO corn, it was hybrid. And now it caused a lot of problems in marriages because they call it marriage breaker. Because when they use the maize to make what they call shima, almost like pounded yam, but now made with beans, made with corn. The women would cook for their husbands, the husband would eat it, the taste is different, the texture is different. Because when we have a variety of food, the food that we eat is not just to fill our belly because we're hungry. We're enjoying the food because of what it looks like, what it tastes like, what it sounds like in our mouth. Imagine eating a carrot. When you eat a carrot and you hear that crunching sound, you enjoy the sound itself. But if you eat carrot, maybe it's not cooked, but you just bought it fresh, and you eat it and it's smushy and it's not, you know that it's not the carrot that you really want to eat. So, and this is why food plays a central place in many of our celebrations, the festivals that we have, even religious observances. In the Orthodox religion, food is important. And so tampering with food is something that should be done with utmost care. And we don't see that being done here.
I know I asked that question because even these days, I mean, you buy maize.
Yeah.
And the taste of the maize is different from what you are used to. And you are told that, oh, this is, to use the local parlance, a Greek maize.
Greek maize, yes.
This is the natural maize and all of that. Is this the process that we see with most of these crops we're talking about?
These are the indicators for problems that should call our government agencies to be more careful about what is approved for cultivation. Because now people are more or less, they've lost control. When you lose control of your food system, you've lost your right to save food. Because you don't know what you're eating. And so people begin to call different varieties, different names. And yes, in the past, we used to have maize. You bring one maize cob and you find some green, some black, some white, and they were different colors. But now you have either white or yellow. And this is everything becoming so common, so uniform, because of hybridization and some other breeding processes. So there's a concern about this because this is directly affecting our food and agricultural system. It's affecting our relationship with our food. And it's affecting our stories of our life. It's affecting our culture. Because when you lose the varieties that you've had for centuries, you are losing your story. You are losing who you are. And this is why we're concerned. We're not concerned about many things because the GMOs are the worst of the threat. But it's a major threat to our food culture, to our agricultural systems.
Mm. The other concern that has also been expressed is the possible impact on smallholder farmers. Dr. Ifeanyi made allusion to it earlier on.
Absolutely.
That somewhere along the line, these GMO crops may eventually drive away the other crops, the organic crops that the smallholder farmers has been used to planting and harvesting.
Absolutely. This is why the introduction of GMOs directly impacts the agricultural system, the way our smallholder farmers relate to our food system. 70% of the food that we eat in the world today is produced by small-scale farmers, not just in Nigeria. And most of our farmers are small-scale farmers in Africa. They are the ones feeding us. And now the varieties that are producing, like the beans, the same way small-scale farmers can cultivate them, but it's completely sabotaging the knowledge base of the farmers. First, they don't even know what they're planting. They don't know where the seed came from. And now they have to depend on whatever they're being told without the real truth being told to the people. And so it's a big challenge. And the kind of GMOs, apart from the beans that are designed to withstand herbicide, have also led to the introduction of so many herbicides into Nigeria that are banned elsewhere. You have a lot of herbicides and pesticides in this country that are not authorized, even in the countries of origin where they're imported from. And so when you have seeds that are engineered to withstand herbicides, you are now encouraging our farmers to bath their farms, to flood their farms with herbicides because those seeds are engineered to withstand herbicides.
Mm. Dr. Ifeanyi, according to a study that was carried out recently, particularly in Spain, where it was discovered that more and more consumers are moving towards organic products, organic foods, to avoid potentially harmful effects of pesticides, fertilizers, and herbicides. But then the researchers also found that organic vegetables, particularly, about 50 species of these organic vegetables potentially have some bacteria in them. And they actually focus on samples of lettuce and spinach. So if organic vegetables also have the potential of carrying bacteria, Where does the consumer go?
Thank you. You see, in this conversation, it's important we situate everything. Foodborne pathogen, which can be bacteria, viruses, or parasites, it's as old as mankind. Now, and that's not our worry with genetically modified crops. They are not the same at all. Now, if we improve the production, transport, and vending of these vegetables of concern, we'll be able to eliminate significantly these contaminations by pathogen, because they are extraneous contamination. Now, genetically modified crop have the modification in situ. So whether in the dried plant, the stock left in the field, or the produce stored in the barn or cooked and is on the dining table, we have a trail of the gene residue, the gene metabolites, all right, and what they are able to elicit in humans. Now, you see, when people promote genetically modified crop, I have one simple example I make. There was a huge investment by the American government to fortify what they call the Golden Rice Project, to fortify rice with vitamin A so that they can help black people, Africans, people from the third world, so their children do not go blind. Very lofty and novel. However, when they produced it, before they started the distribution, they gave a caveat, not for consumption in the United States. They do not need vitamin A. Don't they need vitamin A? And my brothers here are clapping that it's coming. They are fortifying products with it. Now the point is, in these countries where they had embraced GM, what exactly is the objective? They have industrial farm that would thrive on monoculture platform, where an individual can do 2,000 hectares. An individual, and that's a small farm holder in the US. And all they are interested is to produce this corn excuse me, so it could be used for biofuel. Do we grow corn in Nigeria for biofuel? Now, another person, for example, when they modified our cassava, one of the reasons they were modifying our cassava is for it to be used as biofuel. Do we grow cassava in Nigeria for biofuel or for stomach fuel? They modified another one that they want it to store more starch, lose out more water. But it failed. It was retaining more water than losing out more water. So the idea of using it to produce industrial starch failed. It was done in this country. So the point is this. What we're saying is that the challenge with GM has the human health and human and animal health perspective, and it should be thoroughly addressed. What we're saying is that it has environmental impact, and very many times it's been very established empirically to be very negative. It's fast destroying our biodiversity. There are evidence. There are some countries that have embraced GM and they've lost the monarch type of butterfly. It's entirely disappeared. So that means an altered ecosystem. Okay, so we also have the challenge that in many countries, like the canola plant, when it was modified, the country that had the heritage of canola lost the heritage. We're saying that we have the beans heritage in Africa, and that the way we want to now adopt a monocrop, because the people distributed the crop across the country, north, south, east, and west. And farmers who were not informed, largely not educated, were told it was an improved seed. As a farmer, you want something that will give you yield. They were misled into accepting that and growing that side by side, their traditional seed stock. And so what have we done? We have succeeded in contaminating their traditional seed stock, which they actually never had a problem with. Because I beg to disagree that while we have a decline in beans production, it's not about Muraka. It's about the issues I've talked about. People can no longer go to farm. Before now, we have always had pests. My grandparents are dead. They farmed cowpea. And they had ways, very elementary ways of dealing with Muraka, including as simple as using wood ash. Nobody has explored sustainable means of dealing with issues here. We are getting a one solution fits all, and it's a problem. Now, the point need be made, and I had said that in several fora. We have well-rounded scientists in Nigeria. The universities are shut down. Which university, what it sought, can start from conception to completion of genetic modification of any crop that will reflect national interest? Is it when they finish it in Switzerland and it comes to you as a completely knocked down living organism, and you couple and you tell us you have done something? That is how we came about the BT beans.
Now, that brings us to the politics of it, Mr. Bassey, and that has to do with the governmental agencies that are supposed to be regulating the distribution, or in fact the production of these crops. The Senate seem to have listened to some of the concerns expressed by food activists, environmentalists, and all of that. How far has that gone?
Well, we're happy that the Senate, the National Assembly, is finally taking steps to review the National Biosafety Management Agency Act, and we're hoping that they get through with that, because some of the aspects of the bill, the existing framework that they want to modify is with regard to liability. They're proposing strict liability in the revision. Which means that those who are bringing GMOs should be willing. They should know that if anything goes wrong, they'll be held accountable. The previous system was just very, very casual about liability, and so people were not deterred to bring in any kind of experimentation to the country. It also tightening up the composition of the board, which would, well, right now is the boards are filled by people who are promoting. You have promoters of a technology also regulating the technology. It's not possible. It's like the Nigerian government and oil companies on joint venture. Then you expect the government to regulate the oil companies. We've seen what has happened over 60 years. No regulation. No serious regulation. We have pollution everywhere, explosion everywhere. The same thing is happening with the biosafety aspect. And we missed it also when the National Biotechnology Development Agency was set up many years before the regulatory agency was set up. So already had an agency whose job was to produce and promote without a regulatory agency, without any law regulating the sector, and now you have the regulatory agency and they're working hand in hand. So what are you going to see? They're like Siamese twins, because one, the promoter gave birth to the regulator. So they're working hand in hand, and that's why we don't see any difference between the two agencies. Maybe they might as well fuse them into one. But really, what the Senate is proposing to do now is what every Nigerian should support. Because it's not about who is an authority, who is controlling now. It's about our future. It's about our children. It's about the future of farming and varieties in Nigeria. And don't forget, what we do here affects other African countries without their consent.
Well, the promoters of GMO argue, for instance, that the population of the world is growing at such an exponential rate, and that food production also has to match that growing population. And GMO, according to them, is about the only solution to do that.
You know, people use the population argument very much, and just in the way you propose in the question. But you know, it's just it's a business concept. Right now, 30% of the food that's produced in the world is wasted. A whopping 30%. This is even in the industrial countries. They throw them and they waste it, either in different ways. And so you have enough food in the world today to feed double the world population. And we're not talking about 99 billion is not double the current world population. And so the argument about population is just a totally false argument. We are not hungry because there's no food, because people don't have access to food. Equally, our farmers are producing food in the villages, those who are not disturbed by bandits and unknown government and all kinds of people, but they can't move that food to the city, to the markets where they are needed. They are not getting sufficient income because they can't move. There's no infrastructure. We used to have a directorate for rural infrastructure. We don't have it anymore. So the farmers produce and the food gets wasted. The tomato gets wasted in the market. It can't get to, get wasted in the farm or in the local region where it's produced. It can't get to where it's needed. And so the problems we have are many. That those problems should be tackled and not believing that GMOs would solve the food problem. That's not, the GMOs would not solve the hunger problem in the world today because they don't necessarily yield higher than natural species.
Dr. Fanyi, on the final note, what is the logic behind the proposal by experts like you that there should be a 10-year moratorium in the production of GM crops in Nigeria?
Thank you. One reason is, insofar we can't start the process of modification in country and complete same for purposes of containment, I would advocate we increase the moratorium from 10 years to 20. 2, insofar we cannot label ogi, akamu, akara, beans in country, the moratorium should stay. Now, the point is this. My worry is that we are good at copying and we paste indiscriminately. What is the problem with our food system? Let us speak to it. We just revamped Nile now. The next thing you see anywhere you are driving past is a large expanse of land that the ecosystem is utterly destroyed. They take down all the trees, take out everything, take out the topsoil, and they tell you it's soil preparation by NADA. There's something fundamentally wrong. We are not getting it right. Now, the Federal Ministry of Agriculture must get up to the mandate of being the gatekeepers of how agricultural practices are done here, either by NGOs or merchants that are coming to sell us seed. I am worried that at this rate we're going at adopting GM crop, and we do not have a viable seed bank, germplasm bank, for our traditional seeds and crop. It's a worrisome dimension. So there's a lot we can do. Do you know that if you grow this maize today without fertilizer, you will harvest nothing? That's another aspect calling for research. Is fertilizer very healthy? The African Development Bank president came to discuss fertilizer business with our president. Is fertilizer, inorganic fertilizer, also very safe? Can't we find how to commercialize the neem fertilizer? Neem is a plant that is friendly to Nigeria, and it's been proven that we can produce fertilizers from it.
Neem being dogoyaro.
Dogoyaro.
Exactly.
All right.
And very many more.
That's a subject for another day that we need to explore. Thank you so much. Dr. Kashmir Ifeanyi is a molecular biologist, and of course, we have also been joined by the founder of Head of Mother Earth Foundation, HOMEF, Nimo Basi, a renowned environmentalist. Thank you, gentlemen, for finding time to join us on the program today. All right, that's it from here. Thank you for investing your time with us. Join us again when we bring you a fresh edition of People, Politics, and Power. Bye for now.